Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Stompcast, the PvP-centric podcast. Back from our month-long hiatus. My name is Nord, aka Grouch, and I'll be your only host today as our good friend Siggs seems to be MIA. Our guests today include Zael from GuildSource. Zael, what is GuildSource?
Yeah, GuildSource is on YouTube, and we make Guild Wars 2 specific videos. We don't want to touch any other game right now. That we try very hard to make worth the watch. We do exciting matchcasts to guides to retardedness to patch notes discussion in that order, and focus on production quality to make the videos worth your time. And we spend more time making them for that reason. As an example, we have a matchcasting style that's different than others with a cool pre-match visual that pumps you up for the match. And often we'll do a replays and tactics segment, which is really interesting and informative, and people really like that. We started GuildSource only about 3 months ago, and we wanted it to be about quality, so that's what it's all about. And since then, our viewer base has grown a lot, so I got to thank my subscribers for that. Shout out to my subscribers. You know who you are. And yeah, that's GuildSource.
All right, with us as well, we have Tom from DataMined.com, a website focusing on the business side of esports. What do you do over there, Tom?
So I'm just essentially the creator and author of a lot of the content on DataMined Out. I started up the site with the goal of helping smaller businesses find their way into a very fast becoming crowded world of esports marketing, and from there it just sort of expanded into all business. My co-author on there is Jeff Moore from Fantasy Esports, the fantasy league for the up-and-coming fantasy league for esports in general. Right now they have StarCraft 2 and League of Legends with plans to expand to Guild Wars 2. And DMO is essentially just a resource for people to get on and find out more about what digital companies are doing right now to market, to advertise, to handle their finances, and just to help companies get a head start and really make it in esports.
All right, so as our listeners have probably guessed already, this is going to be an esports-orientated episode. One of our first topics we're going to take a look at is just kind of ArenaNet's handling of SPVP and tournament play post-launch. I haven't really heard much at all, actually. Let's be honest. We still don't have paid tournaments. Haven't heard any word on spectator client, private servers, monthly or yearly tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that their priorities were a little bit, different. Like, I don't think at any point that they said, okay, PvP is going to be one of our number one priorities. So we're definitely going to have to deal with that. And we're also dealing with all the bugs and stuff that they've got coming out. And I guarantee a lot of their resources are wasted on the hacking and stuff, not making actually real progress on the development of the game. So what can you do?
Yeah, I agree. It's so tough, especially when you have this fast exploding world of esports, to have a new MMO that wants to be esports focused, because I mean the scene has been growing so much in the past year alone that it's difficult for, I feel, an MMO to try to make it right now when they're just launching, because you have to deal with all these bugs, a massive world, all of the PvP issues, and then on top of that balancing PvP and preparing spectator clients and hacking. There's just so much to do that I feel like it's slow going for development in general.
Yeah, that's totally true. That's a good point, where if it isn't developed pre-launch, all this stuff that we need, which, we need a lot of it, but honestly a little bit would have gone a long way, like private servers or just a nice tournament browser. But if it's not already implemented and the game's launched and now all there's this crap storm of problems, then, it's not going to be right now when we get all these fixes that we want.
Right, yeah. And I can't agree with you guys, but the one thing is that I think ArenaNet kind of picked up responsibility for making this an esport as fast as possible when they used the buzzword esport. Like I mentioned earlier, Friday was talking to, but I mentioned that the only reason I bought Guild Wars because this competitive aspect of the game was guaranteed to me. And while it's there right now in its kind of infant form, it's not exactly what I was looking for. But me and 1,000 other players bought the game just for this.
Yeah, I think it'll come around too. I have a lot of faith in ArenaNet. I think that they've been paying attention to not only the esports scene, but the general gaming scene as well. And I think they've noticed that community feedback is very important. And once the bugs get ironed out and the community becomes more focused on driving PvP features forward, I think that's going to become an increasingly large area of budget and time allocation for them. So, I mean, right now, the major community outcry is we need bugs fixed, we need hacks fixed, we want, strong PvE, and that's fair. But I think as time goes by, people will become more focused on developing a true PvP. I don't know, and it's probably good too, because that gives the scene a decent amount of time to develop an understanding of the metagame of Guild Wars PvP before it really gets to the point where it can handle quote unquote mainstream esports mainstream exposure. Because if you had it right now when people are just trying to figure it out, all these people would get exposure to it, then they'd see that, the metagame's not quite that interesting, and it may not be just because people haven't figured it out yet. The balance really hasn't happened. And if they did, they'd probably just dismiss it and then not come back. Whereas right now, most people haven't really dug into it, and hopefully they will once it's at a more stable point.
Yeah, and while I completely agree with that, the only problem is that the players are not able to even get to that point as fast as they could, as the good meta, understanding point, because there's not a really good way to practice right now. Good teams are having to deal with 90% of these bad teams. They're not growing as big as fast as they want to, and then the smaller teams are getting crushed by larger teams not learning themselves. Yeah, that definitely is going to deter that progression a little bit.
I completely agree. On any given day, I'll play, hours and hours of tournaments, and we'll find maybe one good game. And the rest of them are, 500 to maybe if the team was lucky, get 200 points. And you just don't get better from that kind of play.
Yeah.
And it's hard to establish a meta in that when you are playing, subpar opponents. It's like playing Masters League against, people who are just starting out. You're not going to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. The zeal from players has actually been very good. This has been said before. The community has done what it's supposed to. And the question is, how does ANET support for the esports scene compare to the players' zeal for esports? And we've actually definitely outdone them a little bit. I don't think that they expected it as much. I know they wanted it, but they either got pushed, forward on their deadline, couldn't get in some of the stuff they wanted to. I wasn't, in the development room when they were going, okay, what can we and cannot do? But we're ahead for sure, and they're on their heels. And so at this point, it's really yeah, okay, so if you expected esports out of the scene, like you said, Nord, that you're like, okay, this is why I bought this game. Well, at this point now, okay, we don't have it, but is it worth it to wait? And I think it is. I think it'll come soon. So, yeah.
The problem with that is that, when League of Legends came out, there was no scene for a while. I mean, the game didn't have ranked queues. There was nothing. It's nothing like it is now. But the problem is that League of Legends is already out, and everything works perfectly. And Guild Wars 2 is being released in an era where that already exists. So it's really ArenaNet's responsibility to kind of raise themselves to what Riot has done with League of Legends. That's the new standard. And you can't really afford to put a game out and then try to build the esports functionality post-launch.
Yeah, I agree. I just the one caveat here is that it's difficult to compare the two because League of Legends is a 100% PvP focused game. There is no story. There is no PvE. It is all, unless you count Baron. But it's all PvP. The whole point of the game is to beat the crap out of enemy champions and minions. But the point that this draws out, I think, is that kind of an important one, that you need to consider the wants and needs of the PvE players in addition to the PvP players. If you look at the revenue model for Guild Wars 2, they're operating off the microtransactions as well as the actual game sales and expansions. Unfortunately, this makes it until the viewership is there, is large. They can't really be charging a sustainable amount of licensing fees for tournaments that want to show. Because if a tournament wants to show it, they have to be able to justify it in viewers, which are justified through advertising dollars. They can't get the viewers, then they can't get the advertising dollars, so it doesn't justify the cost of licensing Guild Wars 2 to be shown. So the trick here is, in order to bring in the money, you need to have the viewers. But since a lot of your people are PvE, and the game isn't strictly PvP focused, then a lot of people, it's going to be difficult to draw your players from playing to esports. StarCraft 2 and League of Legends could do it easily because everybody went into it with a competition mindset. But that doesn't happen necessarily with something like Guild Wars. So it's a bit more difficult to see that. And then on top of that, you don't really have that much in the way of development towards PvP because it's not where their primary revenue model is yet. If the viewership got up then they could charge massive licensing fees, and maybe they'd be able to cover their server costs for like 30 persistent, always-on worlds that are populated with monsters and players. I mean, the overheads there are so high that you would need a massive source of recurring income in order to maintain it. And if esports can't cover that, then most of their development time is going to go straight into PvE.
Right, I agree. But like the point I made earlier is that I think ArenaNet assigned themselves a certain degree of responsibility when they used the buzzword esports.
Yeah.
And like I said, that definitely sold box copies that they wouldn't have unless they had mentioned that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, yeah. Maybe I went way off topic.
Well, I agree with you completely. I mean, I understand that there is going to be certain places are going to. I mean, they're going to definitely focus on PvE because there is more players that do PvE than there are going to be PvPers. So it makes sense for them, from a business perspective, to focus on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I personally, I love the game. I want to see it in esports form. I would watch it, and I would love it. I would totally watch tournament form Guild Wars. However, we would need to have a spectator client that wasn't, over the shoulder.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't mean to be extremely critical. I think the game will do well, and the game has only been out for 2 weeks now. So it's just the beginning of everything. The one thing I would like to see an improvement on, though, is the communication. All of these questions that we have regarding the paid tournaments, spectator, private servers, monthly, yearly tournaments, they could just simply release a statement saying what their plans are, and my fears would be gone. But they haven't even taken the time to do something like that.
So true. I mean, for a while there, where they weren't even releasing any information on some of the problems, and then they finally got the Twitter and were releasing constant updates there too, and their wiki about like the technical problems with people's computers, and then the hacking issue. Yeah, I mean that's just baseline, like business 101. You communication's everything. That you have to be visible to your customers and let them know. I mean, yeah, how hard is it? I'm sure that they have a development room where they're going, okay, I know this deadline. Okay, let's get a spectator out at this point. Okay, at least give us something. It's not okay for what they're doing right now.
Right. I mean, just like a specific example, I think it was Labor Day weekend. Tournament system was down for 2 days on NA. I'm not sure the exact amount of time. In that period of time, though, we saw tweets come out about PvE storyline fixes and everything you could think of having to do with anything but PvP. There was not even an acknowledgement that there was something wrong with PvP. And I was kind of bummed because Labor Day weekend, 3-day weekend, I was really pumped to play and get some tournaments in, but kind of just sat AFK in the mists or, did SPVP. It was kind of a bummer. And and there wasn't even an acknowledgement, though, that there was something wrong with it. And it was, like I said, it was down for like 2 days before they even mentioned it. And then they got it fixed right afterwards.
Yeah, morale is huge. Like the zeal for the game is huge, and everyone had a lot of it, and it diminishes every time there's a problem like this. And especially with teams that are getting on at the same time, and they're really dedicated. Okay, we need to practice. Let's be the best. It's an especial hit to those players who are sitting in front of the tournament. NPC going, well, what do we do now? This is horrible, and they definitely are going to rage even more because of it. And it's just like, yeah.
But like I mentioned before, it probably is too soon to be super worried about it, like too soon to QQ about anything that they're doing. Because, again, 2 weeks, it's not a lot of time. I mean, I can hardly do things in 2 weeks. I get nothing accomplished. So what they have done with the game, the game works, and that should be enough to hold us over for at least a little while.
Yeah, we need to clearly digress and go, okay, let's look at every MMO. If you're raging, and I've seen a lot of the threads and forum posts and stuff like that, if you're raging that much, you have to sort of have a relative standpoint and go, this is a giant project. They're going to have issues. You have to expect it. There's no way it can be flawless. Like, it's just impossible. So where the error is going to be, it's going to have some. Wait it out. Be patient.
I think it was Tom that mentioned earlier about the licensing for Guild Wars 2 for the tournaments. I don't know if you guys noticed, but a website called Joust, jow.st.
Yes, I was looking at that.
They have already announced that they have money to put up for a Guild Wars 2 tournament. So it looks like there's people that are willing to throw money at Guild Wars 2 in the competitive scene. But, obviously right now, like if Joust wanted to do that tournament tomorrow, they wouldn't be able to do it. Unless we somehow packed people into, hot join rooms and tried to do it that way. But that would be really sloppy and probably wouldn't work. So that something like that just wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, I would be really interested to see how an actual, spectated tournament went. For Guild Wars 2, because as it stands now, I can't see it being viable, given that the only thing that's holding it back, I feel, is the spectator client. If you had a method of watching the game from more of a top-down view, I think it would do so much better. Also, as Zael and I had been talking about a little bit before this cast, we were discussing the viability of different game types, not necessarily the arena type that we have now. I feel like it'd be much stronger to have some new and innovative game types, like in Shootmania, for example, how they're kind of have a new take on the FPS gameplay style. So I think that would be a major step forward, and I would love to see Joust run some cool tournaments for Guild Wars 2. But I just don't see it gaining the viewership that it really needs until there are some changes both to the spectator client and the game modes.
Yeah, I mean, can we talk about that multiple map sort of idea for a second?
Yeah,
yes.
So, like, I mean, that's something that I've been, like, I don't know, I told you before, and that I've been thinking about forever. I mean, I said it a little bit, actually, premature, because a few people, like, raged at me. You're like, what? You don't like the game? What? In any way you think it's bad? And I'm like, no, I just want to improve it. Because Conquest itself, just by its nature, I mean, there has a few points about it that are bad. One, there's no evolution to the gameplay. I mean, let's compare it to a MOBA. In that, MOBAs are very evolutionary. It changes. And if you don't know what that means, it's start to finish. It does the game look different. So that as a factor is a good thing. So yeah, okay, let's not compare it to MOBA. I don't want to compare it to any other games. But we can draw, and kind of improve it. So Conquest is not changing. The beginning is the same as the middle is the same as the end. So let's take another map that would have that. So let's take payload, if that's a term that if you guys don't know is kind of migrating a load, I don't know, let's take a futuristic thing. Usually it's like a hovercraft carrying, some package, and you got to escort it to the finish line. It's on a path. And if your team is on it, it'll move. And if the opposite team's on it, it'll move back away from the finish line. And if both teams are on it, it stays still and there's fighting. And it's a really interesting sort of play system because the map changes depending on where the load is among the path that's just winding about the map. And so then it's really good because it changes and the map changes, and then different professions shine in different places. And then based on the creativity and the skill of the player, they can anticipate that and be like, okay, I know what's around this bend. I'm going to set up this and this and this, and it's going to be awesome. And so that's evolution because it changes. And it's really exciting because the progress itself is, sort of associated with excitement. So when you see it moving really fast, let's say, and you're like, oh my gosh, look they just got this huge jump. Or if it's just nonstop moving, you're like, oh my God, look how fast they're going to win. It's like football, like American football. It's like if he's going from the 50-yard line all the way to the end zone, like that's always an exciting time. You can't deny that it's like, oh, look at him go, go, go. And so that's the exciting thing, and that's that viewability that we're looking for with esports. And that's just, one example. There's like King of the Hill. So I'm sorry going on around here, but I'll finish right now, is that the second point is that the team synergies that Guild Wars 2 that's so, unique is that there's combo finishers, initiators and finishers. And Conquest breaks up the team. So it's like, I want to see more of that interaction. And so when you have a payload system or a King of the Hill system, it allows people to go, all right, let's capitalize on our, initiators and finishers. And that's where a lot of cool things shine. And I'd like to see that.
I agree completely. Like what you mentioned about the 50 yards to the end zone, like it's a clutch moment. Like it's something you could say like, this is winning the game right here. In Conquest, you don't really have that because you just watch the score slowly tick upwards. The only time that Conquest gets really exciting is when you see like 500 to 480 games, like, not knowing who's going to cap the last points and actually win the game.
Exactly.
But most Conquest games don't end like that. I mean, maybe it'll be different when we see some high level play, but at least for right now, I'm seeing mostly, games end at like, 500 to 300. And there's a certain threshold that you cross when you're like, you kind of get comfortable, like, we got this. Not a big deal. This is going to be easy peasy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always going to be the same. Like, even if it's close, it's going to be, that's what you're capitalizing on, is always that the score is close, rather than it being a different sort of ending every time. It's going to be this, so yeah, you're right about that.
I think that also highlights a very important point in a lot of esports, and by and large, the industry as a whole. If you look at sports, every sport has a clear, well-defined point of interest, usually in the form of a ball. And no matter where you come from, if you've never watched any sport before, it's pretty much understood right off the bat that the point of interest occurs where the ball is. Whoever is controlling the ball, that's where you look. As you gain a deeper understanding, you begin to look at things like, in tennis, for example, how is the player standing? What kind of racket is he using? What kind of swings does he do? But if you're just watching tennis for the first time, you look right at the ball and you just follow the ball back and forth. The same thing happens in esports, and this is one of the reasons I believe as to why League of Legends has been outperforming StarCraft or StarCraft 2. In League of Legends, there's a clearly defined point of interest, much more so than StarCraft. In StarCraft, there's so much more going on that it's difficult to watch. It's difficult for new viewers to pick up, or for people to come from StarCraft who have not as much of an understanding and move right into the esports aspect of it. It can be a little overwhelming because you have to watch out for flanks and counteroffensives. You have to be watching resource counts and supply. Whereas in League of Legends, there is one clear point. You're watching the champions fight each other. And if you want, once you get deeper in, you can look at what items they're carrying, things that are a bit more superfluous and not that ultimately do decide who wins, but don't necessarily change the flow, the basic point of interest and flow of the game. So that is, I think, one of the major points that I think Guild Wars needs to address. So in the arena fights right now, it's difficult to know where to look if you're somebody coming in from the outside, or if you are somebody who is just watching Guild Wars for the first time, even having played. It's difficult to know where the points of action are. I mean, you may have a caster standing in the background, and then a thief-style character stealthing and going back there. Do you watch that, or do you watch the two tanks duking it out in the middle? It's difficult to tell, and it's difficult to spectate and observe. So that is one of the key points that I believe needs to be made. And one thing that I think the game modes can really address by offering up something like a flag or something like really any type of scoring device, essentially, you are giving the spectator a clear point to view. And that really brings in new people. And then they can go forth and look at things like team composition, ability stacking, traits, skill selection, and so on and so forth. But beyond just the arena, you have so much more opportunity for clearly delineating those points of interest that really can draw people in.
True. And like we were saying before, you were saying that like LOL is very easy to access. I mean, you go in there, it's like a ball, you know what's going on, you can understand it, and at least enjoy yourself. And for Guild Wars 2, I don't know if it's a good time to bring this up, but the chaos of the spell effects and stuff, and it's not easy to pick up at first. And so that is, we were talking about this before the podcast. And I think that as far as that chaos goes, it'll start to evolve a little bit, because the good players are going to start to like actually break through the chaos, understand it, and control it. And I think that'll actually clear up some of the chaos, as also the viewer understands how the player is structuring the chaos. Because, that's actually an attribution to the skill curve. If you think about it, because there's so much chaos, that means there's so much room to control it. And so then as that evolves and as the game gets a little bit older, it'll definitely help that, at least that barrier to entry, because it's not going to be like, oh my gosh. And then the casters are going to be, pointing that out. And that'll definitely help at least a little bit.
Yeah.
So I want to jump onto something else then. Sponsorship. I know it's a little bit early. Obviously we don't have any of the other tools we mentioned earlier, like, paid tournaments, spectator, private servers, etc. But for companies looking to get into esports, or to get into Guild Wars 2 esports rather, is it too early, or is it early bird catches the worm? Like, how do we guys feel about that?
For companies seeking to get in from a Guild Wars 2 perspective, or from an esports in general perspective?
Looking to sponsor teams in Guild Wars 2 that are looking to compete at an esports level.
I would say that I think that obviously the sooner the better from my point of view, just from somebody who's kind of, more interested in the industry, so to speak. But from an investor standpoint, I feel like it would be difficult to justify, let's say you're a company, I feel like it'd be difficult to justify to your boss why you would be investing dollars in that, as opposed to something that might be a bit more lucrative. So we need to look at the opportunity cost of those dollars, because they could be spent, buying Google AdWords or paying for advertising somewhere that's not in a game that hasn't necessarily hit its prime yet. It's the same thing that esports is headbutting against right now. You have this very, very specific captive audience who's watching these streams, but the trick is, there's a couple of tricks. The first is obviously the sheer wealth of free content out there makes it difficult for any streamer to really charge that much for advertising space, because quite frankly, viewers could just go away and watch free content while the ads are happening. And then on top of that, you've got this difficulty with all this growing clutter, and then the viewership issue of how big is your potential reach to esports people? Because quite frankly, I don't think it really goes outside of the industry that much. If you market to esports people, it stays to esports people. So the potential reach is a bit of an issue as well. So from a sponsorship standpoint, though, I think it's definitely possible. Right now, we're only going to get medium sponsors. I just don't think a big company is going to be able to justify the potential spend. So I think we could get medium, like gaming hardware companies, maybe some technology firms that, like small-time stream firms, that kind of thing. But I feel like it might be a bit early, not necessarily from where the community is, but more from where the actual viability of seeing any reasonable return is.
Well, if you mentioned only being able to give actual items rather than sponsoring with actual money, there's not really a lot of risk in that. I mean, the worst case scenario is that the team that they sponsor, or either the team that they sponsor tanks, or the game tanks, and in which case they lose, a couple $100 on whatever hardware they gave out. If they're successful, rather, they stand to gain pretty much everything, and they have their brand associated with like a winning team. I mean, is there a downside?
I mean, small-time sponsorship is one of, I think, the best ways for companies to get their word out, period. Like, nobody's doing it. Well, some people are doing it, but nobody's really sponsoring the little guys. I think, like you said, I know that iHeart Esports, this merchandiser that I had done some marketing with, I know that they do a lot of that. They send a lot of their merchandise out for free to barcrafts. If you're familiar with the barcraft idea, it's essentially sports bars, instead of showing sports, show StarCraft for a night. And they did that sort of thing, and they also sponsored some teams. And the only issue I can see with that and justifying that is right now esports, well, I mean, there's a couple of issues, but the biggest one was kind of highlighted by all the scandal that happened with surrounding Destiny, where there was just, he didn't represent the esports industry or the Team Root brand very well. And the sponsors noticed, and they pulled the plug, or they threatened to pull the plug, and Destiny got removed from the team. So, I mean, right now, the issue is just, it's a young industry. The people, the main personalities, since we're talking about teams, are just kind of figuring out how to handle fame. And that is causing some issues with personalities clashing with brands. And I see that continuing for quite a while, since, figuring out how to handle fame is a difficult task for anybody, really. But the trick is, like, you've got these people who all of a sudden, not only are they representing their team, they're representing all of these companies and sponsors that are interested in protecting their investment. That's one issue. The other issue I see is the potential reach, like I said earlier. It's difficult, because you could be sending those products to a bigger team. You could be sending those products to a bigger game in general. So the bigger it gets, obviously, the more we're going to have in sponsors. And while I don't think it's too early, I don't think we should expect to see any sponsors for teams coming out anytime soon. Not any big ones, anyways.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, and you can tell me if this is a good, I guess, point, is that, isn't it true that the first set of products that sort of associate themselves with, like sponsorship companies that associate themselves with Guild Wars 2 are like a little bit more impactful? It's like that because you got all these fresh people playing Guild Wars 2, and it's not guaranteed that a lot of them are used to products being sort of advertised in game. I mean, maybe a lot of them originally played Guild Wars 1, and they haven't played a game since then, an MMO since then, and they're not used to that. And so, what if? Is it true that the first set of companies that put their product on Guild Wars 2 and associate themselves with Guild Wars 2 have a greater impact on the player? Because the player going, wow, look at that. Someone actually is sitting here next to the Guild Wars 2 logo, and I acknowledge them, and that might have an impact on me.
Yeah, I would say so. There's just a couple of caveats there, because it's difficult to generalize anything in marketing, just because human nature in general is so dynamic. It really depends on how you do it. If it's more of a philanthropic effort, then yes. So in a new industry, one that's highly adverse to marketing, like esports is, and if you haven't seen all of the flame that goes on in the various subreddits every time somebody tries to market anything,
So true.
Yeah, the people do not. They are kind of nervous at the idea of money coming into esports because they're afraid of it becoming more and more like traditional sports. But quite frankly, that's the way it has to go.
Yeah, why would you be afraid of that? I don't get
A
that.
lot of folks are. I don't understand why. It increases production value for the viewer, more money for the players, more career availability. It's just a better thing in general. But people are just afraid of marketing, by and large. So if you do more of a sponsorship type thing and you support the cause that they believe in and leave it at that, then I think that you're right. Absolutely, that being the first to market is awesome. But if you take more of an advertising standpoint, let's say, you have kind of a PR fail and decide to really advertise to people and make a big marketing push, you're going to have a hard time because early movers tend to be very adverse to marketing. And so if you get your brand in there, obviously they're going to be like, oh, they're, trying to sell us products, and they're going to shut you out. They're going to tune you out really, really fast. So but the problem is that a sponsorship is so silent. Like, you just slap it up on the site and then you sit there. And it's like you fold your arms and you wait because you can't go around saying, hey, everybody, look, we sponsored this, because everybody's going to see right through it. You have to just hope that they will. And that's tricky because you're investing in this and you want to tell everybody that you're investing in this, but you just can't. So while I agree with you, it's a difficult generalization to make.
Yeah, I feel that. Nice.
I did want to talk a bit about ArenaNet's marketing. And it's interesting because I've actually... The commercial that they released, they actually just did one the other day. It was like their first one, and I don't think I've seen it on TV.
Oh God, that thing was crazy.
I'll call it crazy. That's all I'm gonna say. It's crazy, right?
Yeah,
well,
it was pretty nuts.
Well, I was watching TV today. I was watching Always Sunny in Philadelphia just right before we all met up here, and I saw a Mr. Pandaria commercial, and that's something that I haven't seen for Guild Wars. I mean, and not that they really needed it. Because, as we all know, they actually closed down the purchasing of Guild Wars for about a week or so. But it is interesting. Like, I haven't seen anything about Guild Wars anywhere. Like, I mean, are we missing something here? Like, I feel like there's a piece of the puzzle missing. I don't know.
Well, a lot of.
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay,
it's all you.
I was just a quick point. I think maybe since their esports scene, like they advertised it, and then now they can't deliver immediately. It's like. That's sort of a thing. They're like, okay, well, we don't have the esports sort of developed, and so they can't even market that right now. And I guess on the PvE side they could have, but they were limiting it. So yeah, I mean, you're right about that. I don't know. As far as visibility goes, maybe they had as much as they needed. They had a lot of fanfare already. I don't know. It's a good point. That's all I got.
Well, I mean, the whole point, as a business, the whole point is to move your product, to sell it. The more you sell, the more successful you are. So I would think that them spending the money on marketing would boost their sales, obviously.
Well, the trick is, I mean, you have to consider where their target market consumes media, because especially when it comes to esports, but for gaming in general, the gamer is typically a digital media consumer. So you're going to have somebody who is not consuming most of their shows on TV at all. If they're watching, it's probably going to be either over Netflix or Hulu or some other form of media exposure that's not television. So I imagine with a game with budgets the size of ArenaNet's, I can only imagine that they have an actual marketing team who's doing research into where their target market is, who they are, what they consume, and why. So I would assume that they have thought through it very, very heavily and tried to find the best ways to reach out to consumers who would be interested in Guild Wars. So while I haven't actually seen the ads myself, I mean, I've seen the ad on YouTube, but I haven't seen it displayed anywhere aside from a voluntary watching it on YouTube. I haven't really consumed any media in the past month because it's kind of been super busy and crazy. But I would assume that they're running it in places where gamers go, because you can't. I mean, the thing with Blizzard running Mists of Pandaria ads is the WoW gamer demographic is so vast that a lot of them probably consume actual TV media. So you're going to see Mists of Pandaria ads on there, but maybe not Guild Wars ads, because Guild Wars is appealing to, I don't know, maybe a younger gamer a younger gamer demographic. So I would assume that there's some kind of that reasoning behind it, although the only people who could tell you for real are ArenaNet.
I think their marketing guy is pretty crafty. I've seen a lot of reviews and articles come out of a lot of sites, a lot of interviews given to a lot of large sites as well. I mean, Guild Wars was pretty much living on Forbes for a while. I think I've seen like 5 articles come out of there.
Forbes publishes all kinds of stuff for gaming. That's definitely growing.
They're definitely expanding their reach. I mean, and they're not. I don't think they're technically Forbes. I don't think they're Forbes employees. I think they're more like Forbes bloggers.
Yeah.
But having the name Forbes on your review or your article, like, definitely lends it a certain degree of credibility.
Yeah, I mean, everybody immediately associates Forbes with this, like, big, reputable business. So, that definitely goes a long way. Not like having Gawker attached to you, which, I mean, is nice, but no Forbes, I think, anyways.
Definitely not Forbes. So is there, in the business side of things, where can ArenaNet improve?
So I would actually, I know that we touched on communication with the consumers earlier. I'd be interested to hear more about what they're doing. I think that being transparent in your balancing and in your development is super important, and that companies often forget about it because, quite frankly, gamers are single-minded. Like and developers, I feel like especially. So when they want to do something, it's going to be paying attention to their game, doing things like PR and outreach. While ArenaNet's been doing an excellent job, I do think the esports side of things needs to be addressed. I think that they could do a bit of a better job. It's tough because right now, what the game really needs more than anything else is bug fixes. You can't really. It's difficult to market a product when, especially to somebody who's digitally savvy, when you go online and you see, oh, it's got this bug and this bug and this bug. Because then that just turns you off. That turns somebody who might have been considering Guild Wars, turns them off to it right away. Like me, I bought it because I played Guild Wars 1. I loved it. I really liked the char. And I wanted to play one. So, I don't know. Marketing is kind of a really weird field. Just because people are so different. Like, everybody's got a different goal. They've got a different agenda. They have different reasons that they play. It's tough to market to them just because you have to market to the masses on an individual level because they're usually alone when they're consuming digital media. You have to do something that's going to appeal to the individual while being sent out to the masses. Whereas with a lot of advertising, you can make it appeal to the masses because it's being sent to the masses. So I don't know. It's a difficult spot for ArenaNet to be. In terms of marketing, I would say that they've done a lot really well. Right now, I think they should focus all of their time and effort and money on development just because those bugs need to get fixed, and then make another push towards marketing, maybe do another ad, but those are super expensive to get and run. Maybe spend more time with community outreach and a better spectator client, and then advertise through things like MLG and the major tournaments that you see doing esports, if that's the way that they want to push it. And if not, then, hyping up their next expansion or what have you. So from my point of view, from a marketing standpoint, they've done a lot and they've done it really well. Better than most MMOs. I mean, these days you can't just create an ad, stick it up online and expect to get people watching, and people interested. It might generate some interest, but it's not going to have nearly the effect that digital media used to. Now you need to be a bit more creative, use social media, be part of the community, outreach, a lot more PR, good service. And that kind of stuff ArenaNet's doing really well. At this point, I think the only thing holding them back are limitations on the game.
I just want to bring up one thing that you mentioned. You kind of made a point in a roundabout way as well. You mentioned how making an ad is expensive. Obviously, it costs a lot of money to get everything together to make an ad, the filming and whatnot. Well, ArenaNet made that commercial or that ad, but as you mentioned before, you voluntarily went to their YouTube to watch it.
Right.
And that's the only place I've seen it is on their YouTube. So doesn't that seem kind of like a waste?
Not right. I mean, I guess, the thing is, I enjoyed the ad. So for starters, it made me excited to go back and play the game. And every time they do that, so there's a principle in marketing known as cognitive dissonance, which essentially is, and this is a principle in psychology actually, marketing just uses it. Essentially what it is you go and you buy a product and then you feel bad about buying that product because you didn't want to spend money or whatever. So this is most evident in car companies. What they'll do is if you buy a new car, let's say a sports car, let's say you go and buy a Corvette, spend a huge amount of money on this Corvette, you go back and all of a sudden you're feeling bad about buying the Corvette. Well, they'll do a couple things. The first thing that'll probably happen is you'll receive a call in a couple days asking you how the new Corvette is. They also usually give you membership to some kind of club with other Corvette owners, something to add exclusivity that reduces cognitive dissonance so you don't feel bad about buying it and ultimately return it. But the number one thing that they do is advertise. Car ads are not designed to sell cars. I know that sounds kind of weird, but they're really not. Car ads are designed to make people who have already bought cars feel better about spending that kind of money. That's the most interesting, example of cognitive dissonance reduction. And that's what this Guild Wars 2 ad does for me. It makes me more excited about the game. It makes me feel less bad about purchasing it, although I was already way over that because I pre-ordered the game months ago. And it makes me excited about it. And like, if I had many friends who were gamers, which surprisingly in Seattle can be difficult to find, I would be showing them that ad and saying, "Hey, look at this! Check out where that woman's face turns into the character. That's pretty sweet." But I don't know. To me, the ad did really well. I mean, I'll just pop on to YouTube here and see how many views it's got. But eventually, I mean, ultimately, an ad is an investment too. So further down the line, they already have that ad. They could run it on Hulu or, really anywhere the gamers go, MTV, what have you. And they can run that as a pre-roll spot then. All they have to do is chop it down to 30 or 15 seconds. So to me...
Did you see...
Oh, go ahead.
Did you see how many thumbs down it has? Though, like on a few places that I saw it, because there was an official one, and then I saw it on Dantane's channel. Like thumbs down, like half. It was like absurd.
Really, that's disappointing. It was a cool ad.
Yeah, I mean it was, but I think what it is that it was so different. Like obviously,
yeah, and the focus,
and that it breaches you a little weird. It's like you're like, whoa, what? There's like it was almost looked like an advertisement for the Secret World.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Right? Like you're sitting here going, wait, what did I actually click on the right thing? And then like, but all in all, I watched it like 3 or 4 times because it was like art. I like wanted to comprehend it. I'm like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
And in the end, my conclusion was that it was really different. And that isn't that exactly what Guild Wars 2 is. It's supposed to be really different. So I thought that it had a good marriage there.
Yeah.
Where it was just so different. I'm like, all right, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point I hadn't thought of.
Were you able to find out the view count?
I am still digging for it. It's Guild Wars 2. Is it trailer or ad? Because
you shouldn't have to dig for a commercial that hard. I don't know.
I think this is it. No, this is Gamescom
like,
2011.
It was like We Fight as One or something like that. Or it's like, oh no, this is our story.
Oh yeah, it's like
this story is ours or something.
Our time. This is our time.
This says our time. Yeah, that's it. This is our time.
This is our time. Brings up a whole bunch of crap, none of which is related.
I'm gonna find
okay,
it.
Here it is. Here it is.
You got it.
10-9. Oh, that's day month. Doggone it. This is news, man.
It's a race.
This isn't even it. So here's IGN's. This has only got 14,000 views.
Our time is now. Yeah.
Our time is now. Okay. Well, none of us had it.
Yeah, I got it. It's 252,000 views on ArenaNet official.
Yep. I also just found it, and here it is on IGN with 14K, 14.5K.
So you think it's successful?
Man, so many dislikes. That's too bad.
Yeah, right? See, that's what I mean. It's like, yeah, I mean, there's the comment section. They might have should have disabled that or something because there's a snowball rage.
Oh, that would have been way worse.
Yeah, that's true.
Disabling it. That's like deleting comments on your Facebook. I mean, the ad is so... I think the ad's cool, but then again, I'm a sucker for that kind of thing.
Well, and it was directed by the V for Vendetta director, right? You guys heard that?
I did not know that.
I also did not know that.
Yep. So, I mean, that's why it's so abstract, and it kind of makes clicks when you hear that. It's like, oh,
I get it.
Okay, that is interesting. That's a good movie. I like the movie.
Maybe they were trying to recreate. You guys remember the Apple ad from the 90s?
The 80s? Oh, yeah, 90s or 80s, yeah.
Yeah.
The one where they're all sitting in the room.
Yeah, 1984 is the inspiration for it, where the chick throws the hammer through the screen.
Yeah.
You know that
Yeah,
ad wasn't actually supposed to air?
Really?
Yeah. They meant to air a completely different, much more generic ad, but somebody had mixed up the tapes. Turned out to be the most successful advertisement in history.
Yeah, I mean, I was obviously, I didn't watch it back then, but I've seen it like rerun multiple times just because it is like it's kind of an iconic ad.
Yeah, in marketing classes, that is like one of the things that you study is why was that successful, and it was just a fluke.
Okay, so here's a question. All those dislikes from a marketing standpoint, how bad is it? Or is it like good? Because, negative publicity is good publicity or whatever.
So, I mean, negative publicity in many cases can be really good. This means, obviously you don't want negative publicity like, somebody like Minnesota Vikings, for example, having a bunch of prostitutes on their yacht is bad publicity. That is actually bad. But this, like having an ad, see, people don't play Guild Wars for the ad. So, I mean, it's not really destroying that many people's like view of it, but what it is doing is generating some interest. Like people are gonna watch it. I mean, now obviously they haven't been watching it off the hook, like it hasn't been going viral, but that kind of dislike I don't think is really that bad. I don't see that much of a negative repercussion from it.
Here's like a thing I just thought of. Doesn't it sort of play as if it's supposed to go on TV, where someone would go like, oh, what is this? And then it turns into a Guild Wars 2 advertisement. You're like blown away in your seat. Your head just explodes and you're shitting bricks. Like, what? I did not know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, that's almost how it plays. Because, like, you go to your YouTube and you know exactly what it is. Even though it's confused right at the first, you're like, wait, what? But if it's on TV, then you have no idea. And it almost seems like that would be a more effective, like, medium for that.
Yeah, it could be. Weird. It could be that they're trying to. I mean, obviously, this is very, very heavily geared towards WoW users. You can tell just because, the whole our time is now, we're fighting the status quo, is I think actually one of the lines in the ad. This is very, very much geared at WoW. Like, this is a threat. So, to me, if you threw that where WoW users go, like all over it, I don't actually think that would pick up necessarily online, because people would probably just skip it like they do every other ad. It's meant, I think the beginning part, while it's meant to grab you, most people probably, if they don't know what it's for, just assume it's a Secret World ad, if they know anything about MMOs. But on TV, where you can't skip ads, you would be totally correct, I believe. So showing it on TV where people will watch it and be like, oh, this is kind of interesting for an ad. Maybe I won't.
Yeah, exactly. That's the main thing that catches me, is when I'm confused and like, I can't discern it immediately. That's what catches me.
Yeah,
mysteriousness.
Yeah, and it doesn't. It's trying to break away from the whole. I mean, the message is very clear throughout the whole thing, where it's essentially Guild Wars is not like other MMOs. They don't even advertise like other MMOs, I think, is the point that they were going for.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's also like rallying. It's like it almost seemed like the youth were rallying together, and it's sort of be like, oh man, hey, we got a community. Let's like rally together, and it's sort of a kid appeal, I guess.
Yeah, except saying we have to overthrow WoW really only gets people fired up with their pitchforks for like a day, and then everybody goes back to their hunters.
All right.
Yeah, I actually really liked the advertisement. I thought it was fun to watch. A little long. They didn't really. I mean, obviously they would cut it way down, and when they did that, they would probably put in a lot more actual game footage, which I think would be a bit of a mistake. But then again,
me too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I like it. I think it's pretty sweet.
Ballsy. That's the best thing.
Yeah.
Really ballsy.
Yes, ballsy. That's a good way to put it.
All right. So we've touched on quite a bit. ArenaNet's handling of everything pretty much post-launch, the marketing, sponsorship. Is there anything else you guys want to chat about before we wrap it up?
I don't know. I'd like to sort of appeal to the viewers and go get more involved with the viewing of PvP. I mean, we'd be talking about PvP in the esports scene, and the best thing you can do is really get into it, like make it something that you want to improve upon and watch as those pro players get better. I don't know. I do think that it's fun, and I just want to rally everyone because like there's a lot of exciting things to come, and in however many months from now, we're gonna look back and go, God, that was so bad. Can you imagine being in a PvP environment like that? It'll be such an improvement, and we'll look back and go, wow, that was. I mean, it's just like World of Warcraft. I mean, people look back at when they were Burning Crusade and like, God, vanilla, so crazy. I mean, there's a lot of people who like vanilla, but I mean, that's just nostalgia winning people over. The truth is that all these different features really improve, and I think that's the same for PvP. So we as players can be very excited about what's to come.
I made that exact point today. I was watching Fanaram's stream, twitch.tv/Fanaram, in a really close game, and everyone was like super excited about it. Chat was going crazy, and I made the comment that the play that we're seeing now in 4 months is going to be considered mediocre. Like, these great games that we're seeing are going to be just average games, in the future, because people are going to be getting that much better. There's a lot of improvement to be had. I mean, if you watch the communication that a top-level WoW team has in their arena versus what we see in Guild Wars 2, it's a big difference. And they'll get there eventually, but again, so much improvement to be had. Games will improve so much.
Exactly. And don't let the skill cap that you perceive fool you. There is more to it. And just you're gonna have to trust me for now. And you'll see teams crushing other teams, and there are little reasons that are jaded to you right now, I guarantee. And there's a lot of exciting gameplay to definitely be had and viewed.
Yeah, and I would say be vocal about it. If you can, if you have a Twitter account, definitely tweet at ArenaNet. I know that they listen. You see that they're listening to people. They're interested to see what the community wants. And if you want faster esports development, the ability for players to really be able to go back and watch their games and see how they can improve, a stronger spectator client that makes it more fun to watch, really any features that you want, be sure to let ArenaNet know. Be very, very vocal. That's the best way to get the developers to start to really see that esports is something we desire. And it's something that we want to see more of in Guild Wars 2, and that they should begin to allocate budget and time towards it. So make sure you're talking, make sure that the community is actively pursuing esports, get on Reddit, upvote those esports posts, upvote the streams. It doesn't cost anything but a few minutes to send out a tweet and upvote some of the esports related requests on Reddit that ArenaNet routinely goes on. They definitely do. They'd be stupid not to. Just be vocal, be active, make sure that people know that we want to see more esports stuff.
Just a couple quick shout outs before we wrap this up here then. There is a Guild Wars 2 esports Reddit. It's r/GW2 esports. Doesn't have that many subscribers right now. I think it's hovering around 700. Would definitely like to see that go up. Hopefully that booms once the game kind of finds its niche. Other than that, there also is the Pound GW2 Ringer IRC channel on GameSurge. You can actually find a link to joining that on the GW2 esports Reddit. Basically, just a good place to find other players to play with for tournament play. If you don't have a team and you want to play, it's a good place to go and find like-minded players. Do you guys have anything else?
Nothing specific. Nope.
All right. Well, then, again, a big thanks to my guests today. We had Zael from GuildSource. That's youtube.com/GuildSource. And we also had Tom from DataMined.com. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks. I've wanted to do that the whole thing.